So I want to just try to record this, but I don't know if it will go anyway. There's been like song in different kinds of ways moving through me, but I'm hesitant and resistant to it, but then yet it feels important. And we often do this in art and living. We maybe get this big wave and inclination, desire to follow that thread, but then maybe we doubt ourselves in the process because you go, oh, I'm not, in my case, a singer. I don't, although I guess anyone could be, but because it's new to me, I'm like, ugh. But it feels like strong in my body, in my heart, in my spirit, and it's just been coming to me too, right? So there's all these like factors that happen in the creative process, the artistic process, when we're opening up to all creative expressions and sides. So I thought that I would try to sing what I have been working on with no music, because I don't play music. Because it's like, you know, too new to me, which is scary, right? So it's just illustrating a point that sometimes even we'll go to make a mark, you know, that could be scary if we never made the like raw, primal, aggressive marks that we wanted to, or we never like tap down deeper into that space. And when we want to speak and be seen for all it is, we just worry sometimes. We want to be received, right? But ultimately we need to receive ourselves first and stand in the presencing of that heart of awareness, and let it flow through us. So this is called the Dark Nights of Her Soul, you know, and it kind of goes like this. The dark nights of her soul that really brought her home. They say she shouldn't know about hardships or fragile things, a love that breaks or a love that bends, meandering moments caught in a wave. She has seen it all, she has seen it all, she has seen it all before. The dark nights of her soul that really brought her home, shattered into a million pieces. Oh boy, no, you wouldn't believe it. Almost dying, always trying, never giving up. That's all I got. I like the never giving up part. Never giving up. I think then it would go into like something about survival. Like you can hear the next thing there, but I've been working on it like for a little bit since it started coming to me, and I was getting annoyed because it was coming to me as a song, and I'm like, I don't really sing the songs. Although I do, like, but you know, it's not like a well-honed thing. Voice has always been super challenging for me. I've always been, in the past, like I've been shy and shut down in a lot of different kinds of ways due to many traumas, which I won't go into. Just think like I probably had a lot of them. Woo! But what happens is when you can heal through it, which it's not always an immediate factor here. It could take years, but although we're kind of in an energetic climate where things are rising faster, so they might be coming through more intensely. Creativity and art actually is like a high point for sensitives right now. And then healing, right? We all need healing, including me, on a different level and layer, right? When I first started my journey over a couple decades ago now, I was really shut down and super afraid from everything I had to go through. And life still has ups and downs, even when you're on a healing path. It doesn't just like miraculously change. And the pattern of what you've endured, I don't think you can ever really erase some things. But what I noticed over the years is you can work on the forgiveness, and that is maybe a loaded word. I don't mean forgiveness in a religious context. I mean it more in like, I'm not going to hold on to this pain anymore or numb out to it. I'm going to face it and feel it all in order to heal and like let that reveal itself. And that can be a really challenging thing to do, because when we stop and like have to face it and look and even start to feel, the tendency is to want to run. It just is the nature of something. If you live through something hard and haven't looked at it, it's easier to make the exit. And believe me, I know. And these patterns, when I say it, they can still show up even when right? So it's like, how do you move it into like an embodied awareness and action? And also at the same time, when you have the realization, and even when you're on this like trajectory and moving away from it all, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come back at some point and impact us. But then what do we do in the process of that is kind of beat ourselves up, right? And I'm guilty of that, right? But what I don't think it's so like clear cut, and that's why I always like to say move beyond the binary, or see like all the spaces in between the one and the two sides. It's not just two sides, it's like a multiplicity of everything, which that can make the mind go, what the hell? What does that mean? And it's because that's a lot of information to take in. But it's easier to like often blame or shame or like choose that or just choose that, and it kind of both gets lost in translation, because you could just call this bad and call this good for lack of better terms. But really, like, there's like a value scale when you go from light to dark. There's all those shades of gray in between. So even from like the morning, in that darkness where it changes and rises to the light and then it descends again. We're kind of like that. Woo! So we're cycling through that. And you kind of need the contrast in order to see, right? We talk a lot about maybe a contrast in a painting in different kinds of ways, but it's not just about like a physical value color. It also can be about like that contrast, that emotional contrast, and that's abstract, but in an energetic contrast. Well, it's learning to also like hold it loosely and play with these opposites. Maybe sometimes good is bad and vice versa, bad is good. And then you start like flipping that internally, like, oh, it's not so concrete what they teach me, in those linear thinking systems. Whatever world you're traversing in, we can start to open up more doors internally, like when we face ourselves in the process. So it's like moving through fears. We're just starting out something new, like that song I just attempted to sing. And that's scary to like show it or share it, because people are gonna be like, oh, it's bad. And I'm like, maybe it is bad, but I just accept that it's bad and do it anyway. That's where you kind of get the freedom, because you're like, I'm just gonna try this thing or do that thing and maybe it will not work out. But it's scary to put something on, your heart on display or your heart on the line, right? And that can happen in this raw, emotional, experimental, expressive work. Like, you're trying to, like, drag yourself through all the things, but ultimately you need to, like, well, let it go. But letting go is an abstract, also, concept. What does it mean to just let go? I think what it means, though, is allowing it to be bad. Allowing it to maybe not work and doing it. And that might not be the easiest thing if you're just starting out something. Because there's so many things that end up getting externalized and then we take them on. But we really don't want to take any of the stuff on, which in this world today, that's really hard with the way everything is thrown at us. So we gotta learn to become, like, better, like, I guess, defenders of, like, all the stuff that's flying at us, and kind of maybe deflect some stuff that doesn't make sense. And I guess we need to reject things that sometimes reject us and not shut down, right? And I know about shutting down, and those patterns can be super hard to break. So we give ourselves grace in the process of knowing that we are doing the work, and but if you live through a lot of traumas, it's hard sometimes, right? When that trigger happens, or when it all arises in the moment, you know, it's just, you could feel like shutting down, and that's just an individual life that nobody can really know that except us, right? When we internalized it, and at least you have the awareness to know that, you know, it's coming and it's there, and you're not just running and, like, trying to numb out from it, right? So you can look at it from that side too, that you can see what it actually is. So then we have to kind of allow ourselves to give ourselves space again in that process. It's a lot of allowing and realizing that isn't so, like, left, right, left, right. It isn't like that. It just isn't. But, like, everything's made it to look like that, so then you get trapped in that. But when you, like, collapse that, you got this. You can swim, you can fly, you can dance, but, like, you know, you find that this crosses over, and this crosses over, and, like, it's this, like, is this making sense? It makes sense to me. In the sense of you're not just, like, always, like, that happens internally. But then it can become like a song, or a beat, or a mark in a moment, and a movement. That's where, like, the highest creativity is too, because there's a freedom in being like, okay, it doesn't just have to be this resistance. Like, those are all little openings. But sometimes we're afraid to look stupid, right? Or silly. Or we think it's only for children, or, you know, we put these labels and judgments on, like, oh, that's not the way it is because X, Y, and Z person told me that it has to go this way, but it's not really true, because it's like when you're following that inner drum, then you're opening up to more possibility, and there's infinite creativity in that. And to me, like, when I say highest form of creativity, it's really coming from the inside out. But so much stuff is placed on the external, or we can lose ourselves in the process. But, like, when we redirect it, and then, like, turn and look and be like, ooh, that's right there, and that's what I want to express, instead of run from it. And we do that over and over and over and over for years now. Well, you start to, like, just naturally flow into it. It doesn't mean, though, that the doubt and the fears don't arise, or sometimes some days are really hard still, right? So it's not like we're looking like for that one answer or this definitive thing. Even in spiritual practice, like, it doesn't work that way. It's like always coming back, spiraling back around, and tending to the self and tending to the heart, and realizing that, ooh, this side is going really good, but these things need work. So you know what I mean? So nothing is really wrong. It's just about, like, entertaining that soul song and opening up more of the doors. And sometimes it's scary to look. But, like, we can move through that. And if you're just starting out, something new that you creatively want to express, well, there probably will be fear there because you haven't done it enough. Or there'll be hesitation, like that song, because I'm like, I'm not a singer. You know, I got that on my mind. And of course, I'm not going to be X, Y, and Z singer right away. And maybe I never will be. But if it's feeling like, it's more about following the feeling that you feel called to express. And that can be really healing in itself. It doesn't have to be like this thing that you go do and then, you know, become this other thing from it. It could just be like the nature of what it is. And that's where we're, like, working in the realm of creative expression and infinite possibility, because when you start to tap into that, you can free yourself more and more. And to me, that's what art making and creativity and learning to express all sides and not hide the desire and let it be, like, fully present. And that's when the fears dissipate more and more and more. You know, like, and you start to see yourself emerging and becoming something else entirely. But that's a lot of work. So what we want to say is take it easy, right? We want to realize that it is hard. And things have affected us, but, like, maybe not grasp so much at what it used to be, right? And I mean, I'm guilty of that, but I don't think a lot of times when I'm telling a story now, I'm not really hanging on to it. I'm just trying to let someone know that this really affected me in my life, but I've, like, lived through it. But I guess you can't get anyone to see that, you know, because, like, only you can know what you've endured and survived. So then it's dialing it back to yourself again and, you know, realizing, giving yourself that love and understanding, because it's not always received, you know, and we have to learn how to give it to ourselves. That's, like, in all of these things. And this is going to be hard when we start to go for goals. And not just, like, create to, like, you know, just put it in a sketchbook and leave it there. When we start to open up the door and, like, have the shows and move forward into that, it's a different, like, experience, right? So there's all these different layers and levels to all of it. And we're always kind of starting from a new place again in that spiral creation. You know, but it doesn't mean that, like, you had a great epiphany today. Well, maybe tomorrow you are crying on the floor. You know, I always like to say that because I've seen that in my own life. And, but that's okay that you are crying or crying on the floor, you know. It's not like, oh, I have to be this thing now that I found this one moment of epiphany. It's like, oh, this actually can still happen, the grief and the sadness and the pain and the loss, but I can still have the epiphany and the wisdom and the soul and the colorful creative self. So it's learning how to kind of, like, take it all and play with it and make art, right? That's art is coming maybe from the heart of all of it when we really dial it back to the self. So this is my video of me being vulnerable by singing that song. And I don't know if it will ever be a thing, but it's pretty present in me right now. I know that one thing in relation to voice, besides just like in an artworks, because everyone's looking to find voice, for me it has been, like I said, a long journey to physical voice and presenting fully here, and to even make this video. For me, it was hard to see myself in the world and of the world because of all the trauma. But I know we can survive it because I'm here now. And that's also why I'm here to like open up this other door internally after I've done a lot of work. But at the same time, I'm still learning as much as the next person, and I definitely still make mistakes. And that's okay too, because that's how we learn, right? So you go back to that balance and learn to hold that with grace and love. And understanding that, maybe sometimes the thing we, I don't know, got so hard about, and if we start to look at it from a different angle and point of view and perspective, maybe we say, oh, that really showed me this thing, or it really brought me down this path. So what I'm trying to say is maybe it's not always what it seems, when you can look back and be like, whoa, that really gave me this gift, and I didn't know it in the time, right? Because it was messy and maybe too painful. But when I moved through it all, and when I let myself feel it all, is another important thing. Which sometimes can be hard, right? Because we don't want to go back through to that moment. But there is something about a divine alchemy that happens in the process of that shedding. And if you're feeling any of that now, it's happening on all kinds of levels in different ways. So you're not alone. And art and creativity and learning to express it instead of suppress it and shut down and hide and run is really a good antidote to, moving back into the body and the self and moving through it all, and learning to see what is it. How do you relate to your marks? How do you relate to your words? How do you relate to yourself? And how do you relate to the world and then everything around you, the surroundings? There's so much there. It's not just like, a product. It can become a product and it can do many things. Not saying that it's wrong, because we see it all over. But these processes and this like rich nurturing of the heart and soul and spirit can really be important for, working through things and bringing ourselves back to the center of awareness. So it can be scary, especially when we're just starting. And I know that because I've lived through so many things and was a locked up artist for decades and then not a locked up artist. But even in that same breath, not a locked up artist, it took some time, and because I had a lot more to work through. But I was thinking about it the other day, and I wouldn't really trade it for anything, because it really brought me to this deeper understanding within myself. And that's my story and my journey, and that's what's important to understand, that you can't just take on this recipe of a linear 1, 2, 3, and it just can be very damaging when you try to like grasp onto like someone else's perceived recipe, because we're all living in this creative soup, this energy and this emotionality, and the heart really maybe wants to express something different, and that can be scary because then it doesn't fit in necessarily to the wider world of things. But what it does is you're just following that your own path of freedom of expression, and that can be like super like empowering is the word. So we learn embodiment through empowerment, and vice versa, and keep doing the work. it's never going to stop, and we should be grateful that we're not stopping, because that means we're alive, and that is really where we want to keep tapping into more and more and more, that life force, anchoring into the body, opening up the mind, polishing that mirror, and learning to find ourselves in the process of it all. Yeah.